Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It is, what, Wednesday. Wednesday's the fun day. It's the work day. I'm excited. I've stuck with what I said I'm going to stick with. We've been in the gym. We've been skipping lunches. We're not slimming down. We're still kind of fat. But I think you have to skip a lot of lunches to get skinny. Very happy with life at the moment. We've been doing lots of good work. Yesterday, I worked on the cash game course I've been discussing. We're trying to figure out a way to perhaps give that all to you at a very, very cheap price. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I'm probably about a third of the way done in terms of recording, so that's good. It's always fun whenever you're making a long course, and whenever you go through it, you realize, oh, I forgot to talk about that. And that's good and important, right? Because if you're smart and you're with it, you make very, very good, thorough products. So many people out there, they'll make very, very, essentially basic stuff and try to sell it like it is advanced, but we're not trying to sell basic stuff. We're trying to actually help you all improve at the game, and that means lots and lots of work for me, lots and lots of examples to make, etc., but I am happy to do it. It's going to be a summer where legends are made. We might as well make some legends. Let's do it. Since the World Series is here, I figured I'd talk to you about a few things pertaining to the World Series of Poker. We're going to be doing a giveaway in the very near future. Don't know the exact start date, but it should be very soon. We're going to be giving away 1% of all of my action in the World Series of Poker. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'll let you all know whenever that giveaway is live. It'll give someone a nice sweat. Of course, we'll be getting a membership of poker coaching as well, maybe some books, some other stuff. But someone's going to get a fun sweat, and you all can sweat along even if you don't win it. Also, I have my World Series bundle available. If you are going to the World Series or if you are playing any tournament series, you should definitely check out this bundle. It's you can find it at pokercoaching.com/WSOP bundle. There's tons of great information where I am teaching students going to the World Series, giving them all of my knowledge, and some of them done well, some of them have not, but that's how it goes. So yeah, today, let's talk about the most powerful short stack strategy, the #1 short stack strategy. Some of you may already know this because I discuss it a lot. But in tournaments, especially in tournaments, sometimes in cash games though, you will find scenarios where you're shallow stacked. And when you are shallow stacked, that is a-okay, right? You just have to understand how to make the best possible decisions. So when you're shallow stacked, what should you not be doing? Take a second, think about it. Good morning, Clint, Louis Philippe, Ron, all the regulars, Kevin, all of you are here. Good morning, good morning. Which site's best for US players? Go to jlpoker.com/USA and you will see my thoughts on that. Okay, why do you not... One of the worst things you can do with a shallow stack, talking 20 to 30 big blinds, is when someone raises, you don't want to do a whole lot of calling. Because when you call, you let them realize their equity. So the hands that you can justify calling with are very good, big suited hands, like King, Queen suited. It's perfectly fine to call with that. But you don't want to be calling with stuff like 10-8 suited. That's going to get you in a lot of trouble. So what should you be doing instead with the 10-8 suited, or the King-Jack offsuit, or the Ace-9 offsuit, etc.? Well, someone raises, very often you want to be jamming all in, or and they fold to you. If you have 10 or 15 big blinds, very often you want to be jamming all in. So I have a push-fold app that's completely free. We're actually going to be upgrading it significantly in the very near future. But for now, go to jlpoker.com/app. I'll type it in here, jonathanlittlepoker.com. You can go there, and you can put that on your phone. It's available in the app stores, and that will give you a good idea of how to play short stack poker. Now, I suggest you only use push-fold apps for when you have 12 big blinds or fewer. When you have more than 12 big blinds, you do not need to use a push-fold strategy if everyone folds to you, because then you're risking too many chips. And also, as you use only a big bet, a huge bet, an all-in bet, and a tiny bet, or a huge bet or a fold, you don't get to play that many hands profitably. As you add more options to your raising range, you can either jam or min-raise, for example, you get to play more hands profitably. Now, the push-fold strategy is the easiest one to play, but it definitely is not the optimal one to play. So, whenever you have something like 20 big blinds, you should not just be open pushing all that often. So be very, very careful with that. I know a lot of people, they get a push-fold chart and see that they can shove a hand for 20 big blinds, and they just always shove it for 20 big blinds without ever thinking that there is a better option. So, whenever they fold you and you have about 10 big blinds or 12 big blinds or less, it's probably okay to jam or fold most of your range. Obviously, you're giving up a little bit of equity because you still may want a min-raising strategy, but it's fine. Once you get deeper, though, you don't need to be jamming. You need to be doing a little bit more min-raising, etc., etc. So, the most powerful strategy, though, in my mind, is when someone raises, that's when you want to be going all in for between 15 and 25 big blinds. That is an incredibly strong strategy because most people don't defend nearly often enough. Nowhere near often enough. So, a very classic example of this is, let's say everyone folds to the button who opens with 100% of hands, okay? Think about that. Does that happen in your game when they fold to the button? Are there people who should raise with 100% of hands? Think about it for a second. I'll answer a few questions. What American site should you play on? We already discussed this. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/USA and watch the video. Please message you on Twitter. Send me a message on Twitter telling me to message you because I clearly can't do that right now. And I cannot remember your name. So please send that to me. Or just always email support@pokercoaching.com. I read every single email that comes in. Ace-5 suited in the cutoff, 17 big blinds. Probably min-raise. Jamming would probably be fine, though. All right, so anyway. Let's say everyone folds to the button. Button raises 100% of the time. What should you do if you are in the small blind? Or on the button? Or on the big blind. Small blind or the big blind. Think about it, right? Should you be doing a lot of calling or should you be doing a lot of raising? We're assuming 30 big blind stacks. Well, in this scenario, for a 30 big blind stack facing a min raise, if your opponent raises 100% of hands on the button, but only calls off against a shove with good hands. Well, like, what's a good hand? Well, we're going to call it pocket sixes or better, ace-8 suited and better, ace-10 offsuit and better, king-jack and better. So they're not going to call your shove with ace-5. They're not going to call it with pocket twos because these are not very good hands, and a lot of people aren't going to be calling your 30 big blind shove with pocket twos, right? So, assuming they're going to call that tightly, they're raising 100%, but they're only going to call 12%. If you shove there with literally any two cards, you'll win 2.9 big blinds on average. That is gigantic. And that's the real problem with your opponents raising too often and not calling the all-in enough. In this scenario, they need to call the all-in a ton, like with any ace, any pair, king, 9 suited, stuff like that, because they're opening so many hands. And they're just not, right? So that's a scenario where you can highly profit just by jamming with any two cards. And this scenario comes up a lot. It's what I taught my dad a long time ago, before he was a winning poker player. They would all fold to him, and he would just call with stuff like 10-8 suited and try to flop well. Instead, he started jamming it, and who'd have thought he started winning tournaments almost overnight? Because people folded to him, especially if you play in a local area and you have a tight image, then you're going to crush your opponents because they're going to assume you're really, really tight. Are my pre-flop charts for 6-handed or 9-handed? Understand, pre-flop charts count backwards. So it goes button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. Low jack is under the gun, 6-handed. Obviously there is the bunching effect, which comes into play a tiny bit. It doesn't really matter all that much. In my opinion, I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially for simplistic charts. But low jack is the first position 6-handed. Always count backwards. Okay, so how do we figure out we're going to win 2.9 big blinds by jamming there? Well, we do a little bit of math. I'm going to copy and paste this for you into the chat. This equation here, sorry if you're watching on Instagram, you don't get to see the chat. If you're watching on Instagram, by the way, and you want to see the chat and participate in the full chat, go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/YouTube. Okay, profit equals the percent of the time that your opponent folds times the pot you win when they do fold, plus the percent of the time the opponent calls times your equity in the pot minus the amount you put in the pot. Okay? So in this scenario, what does that math look like? Well, profit equals 0.88 times 4.5, which is how much we win when they fold. right? Because we know they're going to call 12%, only with the nuts, or the pocket sixes are better, ace-8 suited better, etc. And then they're going to, whenever they do fold, 88% of the time, we win 4.5 big blinds. They're 2 big blind raise, plus the big blind, plus the ante, plus the half small blind. 4.5. Plus 0.12, this is how often they call, times our equity in the pot. If you're on 100% range against their calling range of only good hands, you're going to win about 33% of the time. So 33% times the entire pot you get to play, which is 61.5 big blinds, our 30 plus their 30 plus small blind plus ante, minus the amount we're putting in. We're putting in 29 more, right? You do that math, it comes out to 2.9 big blinds profit. Again, this is huge. So, if your opponents are going to be folding too often against a jam, you can jam incredibly often. Now, this is obviously a very simplistic scenario where your opponent's opening way too wide. Like, they're atrociously bad, right? Anyone who opens 100% of hands on the button is atrociously bad if their opponents are anywhere near competent. Okay? Dave asked some question. Dave, I'm not sure what you're saying. All right, let's take a more reasonable opponent who's, can you all see this? Maybe you can see this. Can I make this bigger? Take a look at this image here. Let's assume our opponent's using this strategy. If you all are watching it on YouTube, you can see it. If you're not, well, sorry. If you take a look at this strategy, this is where now our opponent is opening with 50% of hands on the button, which is actually not out of line, okay? I generally advocate opening about 50% of hands on the button. But, again, they're only calling the all-in with the best hands. They're making that mistake where they are calling it off too tightly, okay? And this is actually what a lot of people do. I think this is very, very common, very, very standard in this scenario, okay? So, knowing that, what is our equation now? Well, now they're raising 50% of hands, so let's do the math. Profit's now going to equal 76% of the time they fold now, because they call with 26% of their, or 24% of their total range. So it's 0.76 times 4.5 plus 0.24 times, we still have the same equity, right, with our 100% shoving range. 0.33 times 61.5 minus 29 equals 1.37 big blinds profit. Okay? Whoops, wrong thing. I didn't copy it right. There you go. Oh my gosh, I'm doing it wrong. Haha, I'm sorry everyone. Let's get the math right. I'm getting fancy over here. We're trying to actually use copy and paste at the same time while we're doing this. Some of you said you wanted more educational material. More educational, more nuts and bolts material. All right, so anyway, in this scenario, you see when our opponent folds, we win that 3.46 big blinds, and when they call, we lose 2.09, so we're just profiting a ton, right? Dave says, so we're at 30 big blinds, correct? So at 30 big blinds or bigger, are we 3-betting instead of jamming? It depends on your opponent's strategy, right, Dave? It's not as easy as always do this or always do that. You may find that some people will fold to your 40 big blind raise all the time. You'll find that some hands are particularly good to shove because the other options are not good. It's always important to understand, you are not looking at, is this individual play profitable? You want to be looking at, is this play more profitable than all of the alternatives? A very, very clear example of this is blackjack, right? Say you have 2 8s, right? And the dealer has a 10. Well, it seems kind of silly to split 2 8s and get 18 and 18, because 18 and 18 against a 10 is a losing scenario. But it's better than the alternative of staying or surrendering or hitting. So you make the least bad play. In this scenario, this play is actually hugely profitable. You're going to find that if you call with a lot of the hands in the big blind instead, you're going to roughly win a tiny bit, maybe break even, maybe win a little bit in that scenario. But if you can win a big blind and a half, that is way better than winning or only losing half a big blind, which is what you're going to do if you're very, very good. Do we consider anything less than 20 big blind a short stack? Again, all of this stuff is irrelevant. 20 big blinds is a short stack? No, we do not think like that. We're not trying to put tags on things. We're not trying to make a super simple strategy. We are trying to look at the options and figure out what is ideal against our particular opponents. Then you say, what is our M? We do not use M here. We have never used M. Almost no good poker players I know use M, so we're not doing that. We're not interested in blinding out. The idea of M is how long can I blind out? And we're not trying to blind out. We're trying to win poker tournament. Also, now there's big blind ante, it makes things just way easier, but I think trying to do additional calculations at the table doesn't really help you. Just look at your pot odds, right? And also you learn common scenarios. Like if you're facing a min raise and you're in the big blind, you sure don't want to be folding because you're getting really good odds, assuming your opponent's range isn't only the nuts. Anyway, we're going off on tangents. Essentially what I wanted to show you all here is that jamming in these scenarios, if your opponents do not call off properly, is hugely profitable. Does the amount of time left in the level affect your betting strategy? Typically, no. Almost always, no. Let's see. M takes antes into account. Obviously, big blinds takes ante into account too. You just have to do math. You have to do the pot odds, right? Antes are not irrelevant. Antes are very relevant. Antes are very, very relevant. But you learn common spots where... I just went through this, right? I mean, obviously antes are relevant, which is why you do the pot odds and you figure out the math behind it. I'm not a big fan of always trying to do additional calculations for not a significant gain, because then you still have to figure out, are we getting the right price? That's just my opinion, though. You do whatever works for you. Louis Philippe says, how do we estimate how often our opponent will fold? Well, that's the tough thing, Louis Philippe, because you don't often know how often the opponent will fold. But if you know the opponent is raising a lot, right? When it folds them on the button, they raise a lot. And then you see them not calling shoves very often, you can kind of start to figure out they are probably opening too wide and they're probably folding too often. I just gave you two very clear examples. One where they open 100% and call off 12. One where they open 50% and call off 12. And both of those are profitable, right? Both of those are profitable to jam with any two cards if they use that strategy. So what can you tinker with to make this not a good shove for you? Take a look at this formula. If this here goes down, the percent the opponent folds goes down, and the percent the opponent calls goes up, that's going to lower the back end of the equation, which is almost always negative. So you want to make sure you do have a lot of fold equity, or you want to make sure you have a lot of equity in the pots. It's kind of hard to have a lot of equity in the pot when you're jamming wide, so that's when you start jamming tighter. But for the most part, you need to be able to figure out if people are raising and then folding too often. Frenchie says, is this short stack topic only for tournaments? Absolutely not. This is for tournaments or cash games, and it applies even more so for cash games because there are no payout implications ever. So this is you have to understand, when we're talking about situations in tournaments that do not apply to in the money scenarios, because this is not necessarily applying to money or on bubbles, they very clearly apply to cash games, because in cash games you're just trying to win as many chips as you can. And right here I'm showing you this is a very solid way to win chips. By the way, you're going to find that if you're very good in defending the blind by calling, you're usually going to lose about half of the big blind on average. Okay? So normally if you fold everything, you lose one big blind on average. If you call and play very, very well, you're going to get back about half of a big blind on average. So you see here, shoving in this scenario with 50 big blinds, I'm sorry, with against a 50% range for 30 big blinds, gives you 1.37 big blinds profit, which is, 1.9 big blinds better, 1.8 big blinds better than calling. Obviously, that's going to be a strategy that's just definitively better against this type of player. If the opponent's going to call more often, interestingly enough, what happens is if this number here is going to decrease, which is bad for us, right? Because we win the pot less often, but our equity in the pot will actually increase. Because instead of having 33% equity, we're going to go up to like 40% equity. In which case now, this back number doesn't become quite as small. And you're going to find just ripping it in pretty wide is a very, very strong play. I mean, I've known this for a very long time from playing sit and goes. I was, not going to say reintroduced to it, but I guess it came back into my mind when I was talking with a poker player, Rob Tinian, who's won the Sunday Million twice. He runs the Poker Backing Company, and he has all sorts of charts listing who you can be jamming against and who you can't in these scenarios. And he shared them with me, and it's like, yeah, jam a lot, because people fold way too often. Now, in tournaments, you may say, don't we want to minimize the chance we go broke? And you do. You do. But you have to understand that when you jam here, how often do you actually go broke? Think about it, right? How often do you actually go broke when you jam in the 50% scenario? Well, you get called 24% of the time. It's got a calculator so I don't screw up. Whenever you post this on YouTube, people assume you just have the calculator and all the numbers in front of you. So 24% of the time, we lose 0.67% of the time. So when we shove here, we are out of the tournament 16% of the time, okay? And that's something you have to be okay with. The way you figure that out is we get called 24% of the time, and then we lose 66% of the time when we do get called. So we are out of the tournament 16% of the time we make this play. That means, though, 84% of the time, either we win a little bit or we double up. And that's a lot. That is a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. PP for life. Now that we're using big blind ante, the number of players left, etc., there's always the big blind antes. There's one ante. It's easy. Again, you need to make sure what material you're learning from, and some material is quite old. We'll just say that. The idea of I'm going to play generally tight, aggressive poker is fine if your opponents are awful. But they're not awful anymore. Most people are at least somewhat competent. Great quote by Kevin, by Amir Vahidi. To live in No Limit Hold'em, you have to be willing to die. Something's in my eyeball. Something's in my... Oh, there we go. Yeah, you have to be willing to go all in, and, you know, you're going to go broke, right? So, does this change when there are ICM implications? Absolutely. Right? Because if you want to make if you know your opponent should be very less inclined to go broke, if they raise, you can just jam on them very, very aggressively. This comes up a lot at final tables. I mean, a very, very common spot at final tables is a medium stack will raise, and if you as the big stack should be 3-betting a ton. Because they are going to want to fold and outlast the shallow stacks. I was just reviewing some hands from the high roller tournaments on PokerStars, and a world-class player, one of the best players in the world, someone who I highly respect, he opened ace-queen from under the gun as a medium stack, folds around to the big stack, who was generally aggressive, who 3-bet with king-2 suited. And you may say, why is the guy 3-betting king-2 suited? Well, because he has a blocker. If he gets called, he has suited cards. And he was the big stack. He should be pushing around the medium stack. And the very, very well-respected player folded the ace-queen. Just raised it and then folded it. I thought that was a little bit too nitty, but I highly trust that good player. And I presume he made the right play. So it's a good example of that, right? Where you need to be very, very cautious when you're the medium stack. It doesn't matter so much when there's a small pay jump. It matters on the bubble, because when you're on the bubble, you either get -1 buy-in, or you get the buy-in back plus half a buy-in, or plus a whole buy-in. That's very important. But whenever it's like, say you're going to get two buy-ins or 2.2 buy-ins, it's just not a big deal. Let's see. You just finished my fitness blog. You didn't realize I was live. We are live here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. There are also times whenever you need to be very less inclined to go broke, right? Like say the stacks are 50, 50, 50, 30, 20, 20, and 5. Okay? And let's say you have 20 big blinds. In that scenario, say they fold to any of the other people and they raise, you don't want to be going all in for your 20 big blinds very wide at all. Because even though there, you're going to win chips, you're going to lose dollars, because if you get called and you're out, it's just detrimental, because if you folded for 3 more hands, you'd move up from 7th place to 6th place or whatever it is. So you have to be very, very aware of that. Attempting to not screw up is the same as finding a way, is not the same as finding a way to win. That's very, very true. Seems like all of you like Jeopardy. We like Jeopardy. James watches Jeopardy every night. He loves the daily doubles, and he loves the do. It's very fun. So, what other scenarios should you be overly aggressive? Well, let's presume instead the stacks are now, everybody has 20 big blinds, one guy has 3, and then they fold to you, or fold to the cutoff who opens with a 20 big blind stack, and you have 50 big blinds on the button. In that scenario, if the cutoff is opening too wide, which, if they're smart, they're not. But if they are raising too wide, you can then jam any 2 cards, because they can't call, because then there's a 5 big blind stack. So that's all important to take into account as well. Whenever you see that occur, when a medium stack raises into big stacks in a very clear bubble scenario with other shallow stacks at the table, I used to refer to this as a stupid raise because it's really, really stupid. If you raise from the middle stack, you're essentially saying, I think the big stack is awful. And of course, it's fine to raise with some bluffs, but if you do it on a regular basis, you're just going to light money on fire if the big stacks have any awareness whatsoever. So it's very, very important to be aware of that. We make a poker coach, we make learning exciting and not boring. Thanks to Evan Jarvis, Alex Fitzgerald, Matt Affleck. Yeah, thank you. We try to do good work. We try to make it fun. We also try to make it very educational. It's important to make sure you work well with others and play well with others. If you're out there consistently berating people, belittling people, making fun of people, you're going to find that you don't get to help people as much as you could otherwise. And our goal here is to help people. We are not trying to tear anyone down. We are not trying to even stroke our own egos. We are trying to help all of you better your poker and your life. And all of you who are here on a regular basis realize that. It's very easy to try to make a name for yourself by tearing others down. But in theory, that is, well, in practice, that's how you just make everyone not like you. Let's see. Don't attack. Oh, so how do we play against early position raisers? Okay, so this whole talk so far has been discussing how to play against the late position raisers who are opening too wide, right? Go back and use that equation. Let's see if I still have it loaded up. Go back and do this equation, right? Do it on your own. Take your time. Percent opponent folds. If the opponent's only opening the top 12% of hands, which is that same calling range, and they call with all of it, this portion of the equation here I've highlighted is 0 because they're folding none. They're raising with 6s or better, ace-8 suited better, ace-10 offsuit better, king-jack suited and better, and then they're calling your shove every time. So you have no fold equity. So now, that means we need this back end of the equation to be profitable in order to jam, which essentially means we need to have more than 50-ish% equity against our opponent's range. I just told you our opponent's range. Let me pull up Equilab real quick if it'll function. And I will tell you what we can shove in this scenario, assuming we're trying to make money. So what we do here is we put in this range for our opponents. We have ace-8 suited or better, pocket 6s or better. What did I say? Ace-10 offsuit and better, king-jack and better. So suppose our opponent raises in and calls off with all of this, which is definitely not going to be the case. Hand range calculator. We need to have 50, let's say we need to have 52% equity to break even. We actually need to be tighter because we're trying to make money, right? In this scenario, we can only call it off with 10s, or we can only jam with 10s or better and ace-queen and better. So you see the difference. In one scenario, you can jam 100% of hands. In the other scenario, you can only jam ace-queen and better and pocket 10s and better. Let's say we want to have a little bit of an edge. Let's say we want 55%. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Tools, hand range calculator, we want 54%. Now we can jam, we can't jam ace-queen offsuit. So you see, if the opponent's opening with that strategy I just gave you, and calling it off with all of it, we can only jam with the nuts, pretty much. Now, of course, if the opponents will fold some of that, then you have some more fold equity, right? So this number over here will go up a little bit, so that'll allow you to shove a tiny bit wider, but it really then not much wider. So you always want to be asking, how often will the opponent fold? Louis Philippe was asking you, again, how do we estimate this? Quite often it's just based on their starting range. Most people aren't going to call your all in with king-8 suited for 30 big blinds. They're just not going to do it. And for that reason, you can jam on them very wide. But if they're not opening king-8 suited because they open from early position, then you certainly cannot get away with jamming incredibly wide. You're just going to light your money on fire. You had a guy who was trying to make fun of your note-taking at the table. The dude wasn't laughing when you started taking his chips. Yeah. A lot of people like to be antagonists. They like to be instigators. They like to cause problems. And stems from insecurity. People who try to give other people problems have problems in their own life. And it's important to understand that, right? When you see people out there trying to tear down others or berate you, unless it's, of course, they're joking, they often have very, very, very bad mindset issues. Now, some people, when they joke, if they're malicious about it, they clearly have mental problems as well. But there's no need to be rude. A lot of people are rude because they don't understand how to work with other humans. And this is why a lot of people like this don't actually succeed very far in life. Frankie says, give them a hug. Yeah. Let's see. We have a question about a hand that apparently got buried because it was posted on Instagram. Did you win back-to-back $1 million Foxwood tournaments? No, I only won one. I do not see your other question, Gamble King. But if you have Ace King's great. The other day, James came over here and grabbed this bracelet and started flinging it all over the office. You can see that on Instagram, though, in the Instagram stories. We got this. Is this from Foxwoods? It is. We got this little bracelet for winning Foxwoods. They engraved Foxwoods on the back of it. You probably can't read that. We also got... Should I even attempt to stand up and get this thing? You all see me wearing my gym shorts today. We're going to the gym after this. We got this trophy for winning Foxwoods. This is not a particularly sturdy trophy. It'll fall right apart. But we got this. And they gave us $1 million. We only got one of those, though. We only won one Foxwoods tournament. So, those were the good old days. We're going to try to win a World Series bracelet this year. I don't think they give out these World Poker Tour bracelets anymore. They gave them out retroactively, actually, I think. And then they gave them out for a few more years, but I think they stopped. Now they give a watch. And they also give, I don't know what else they give. I have the whole world in my hand. Ha ha, we have the whole world in our hand. This thing's actually very heavy. I dropped it the other day. I don't know how it happened, but I guess I knocked the bookshelf. It fell off, and it bounced right on, not the floor, but this mat. I have this mat for whenever I'm standing up at the standing desk. And it bounced on this, thank goodness. I don't know if it would have shattered. I don't know if crystal shatters. But it was a bit of a sweat when I saw it going. It was like slow motion. And then it did bounce, bounce, bounce. Oh, fun stuff. Keep it clear from James. Yeah, that's why I put it on the top shelf, but the top shelf may not be sturdy. What are the odds I win a bracelet with my schedule? Not very good. I think I'm playing 12 to 15 tournaments, something like that. So let's get out the calculator. Let's assume they have how many people each? Let's call it 800 each. Let's say they have 800 people. Let's say I'm 1 in 400 to win each one. Okay? I'm presuming I'm very, very good. How egotistical of me. So we're 1 in 400. So the way you do this math, the odds of winning, just straight winning, assuming we are going to win twice as often as everyone else, 1 divided by 400 equals. This is how often I'm going to win any individual tournament, times, let's say I play 15 events, I'm going to win a bracelet 3.75% of the time. A lot of people don't like that, being honest with themselves, but it's true. So about 3.75% of the time. Maybe less, maybe more, depending on how good I am. How do you play final table when you have less than 20 big blinds? Are you still shoving often? It depends on the scenario, John. It completely depends on what the other stacks are. It's not about your stack. It's about your stack in relation to all the other stacks. We actually have a final table review series coming out in the very near future, at the end of May, where I go through a lot of high-stakes final tables. When I was preparing David Einhorn for the $1 million buy-in tournament last year, he bubbled. That was not fun. We went through a lot of final tables of high-stakes online games where I was reviewing the play of the people he was going to play against in the $1 million buy-in tournament. And we discuss all sorts of stuff, situations like that. So look for that coming at the end of May. When I grinded the Bellagio, did I eat casino food every meal? I would go to snacks and I would get a salmon salad. Did you accumulate more comps than you could use? Yes. And then what I would do with those is I would often go out to like Noodles or somewhere with a bunch of people, and I'd like have a party once every month or something like that. Let's see. You say you guess that's why bracelet bets are plus EV. Depends on what you mean, Dean. Depends on what odds they give you. If they give me 100 to 1, I'd definitely take it. If they gave me 10 to 1, I definitely would not take it. Your question is when everyone at the table has less than 20. It depends on, again, John, it depends on what are the stacks. If they're like 20, 10, 15, 8, 2, 7, and 4, that's very different than if it's 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, right? Let's see. You got to start work. Bad beat. Have fun and enjoy yourself. Let's see. How do you approach investors for big buy-ins? How do I approach them? I send them a text message. Fortunately, I work well with others. Remember, we discussed this. It's important to play well with others. If you are looking to get backing for big tournaments, like this year there's 100K that maybe I'll play, maybe I won't, but I definitely need backing for that because I don't want to risk, well, too much of my bankroll. And we'll be selling action for that if I do sell it. And I have 2 or 3 people who I can message, say, hey, I'm going to play this if it looks soft. I would like a tiny, tiny markup because I could be playing a 1500 otherwise, right? And then they'll either take it or they won't. And they trust me to make good decisions in terms of opponent skill level, right? Whenever you look at very high stakes tournaments, or anytime you're looking to play higher than you normally would, like for that, I'd probably sell like 70%. So I'd keep 30K for myself, sell them 70. 30K is about what our bankroll can easily maintain. So in that scenario, we would essentially sell 70% at 1.02 or something. Essentially none, maybe even just none, depending on how it's going. And then I would get the money. You have to get the money ahead of time when you go to play poker. And you go and you look at the field. Does the field look soft? Last year, it was just marginal. So last year I played it with the idea that there are going to be 1 or 2 weak players at each table, and there roughly were. But it was a re-entry, and a lot of the good players re-entered, a lot of the bad players didn't, which is not particularly a good scenario. So I would not play it again this year. I don't think there's much value to be had, beyond the idea that if you win the 100K bracelet, you get lots of publicity, right? That's worth something to me, but it's not worth just having a neutral EV 30K tournament in the roster with almost no edge. How much is your bankroll right now? If you know, go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll and realize I practice what I preach. So there you go. Do some math. Let's see. Do you feel shorted if you banked the tournament after selling a lot of action? No, because you wouldn't play it otherwise. Some people have the idea in their head that they don't want to give away their money if they win it. It's not your money, it's their money. What markup do you charge? It's based on the perceived ROI in the tournament. So for example, in a $1,500 event, if I'm going to sell for that, it would be relatively high, like 1.3 or 1.4 or something like that. If it was a 100K with no edge, you should sell it even or less because you don't have much of an edge, right? You always want to ask, what is the deal that the investor is getting? So in this scenario, say I'm playing a 1,500. Let's say I think I'm going to have 60% ROI. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I don't know. I always try to underestimate my ROI. I think that's a very, very wise thing. A lot of people try to brag and say, yeah, I have 200% ROI. It's like, no, you don't. Get real. And I have lots and lots of data from lots and lots of good players, and I know roughly the ROIs you could expect. So if we have 60% ROI, we sell at 1.3 to 1.4. That means I get half of the profit locked up, and the investor gets half of the profit in exchange for risk, right? They buy it at 1.3, I get 0.3, they get 0.3. It's relatively fair. Now, as you have more demand, you can up the price, right? Say I think I'm going to be 1.6, I sell it, maybe you sell at 1.5, if you feel like it. I don't feel like it because everybody I sell to I am friendly with. Again, going back to playing well with others, right? It's very important to play well with others. And so you don't necessarily want to be trying to vig people. I mean, it's very important to, in my mind, it's very important to give back to people, not screw people, not be rude to people, not be mean to people, not cheat people. And a lot of people completely disagree with that. They think they're supposed to try to screw you and they're supposed to be mean to you. Probably because, again, they have problems, right? That's probably how they've been treated their whole life and they just think that's normal. So anyway, I don't think you necessarily need to give half of the profit to the investors. I used to always do that in the past across the board. Now, sometimes I'll give them more if the event's very high variance, right? Like say we're selling for 100K, right? Let's presume I think I'm going to have a 10% ROI. If I sell at 1.02, I'm giving them 80% of the money and I'm keeping 20% of the money, right? That's giving them a value for taking a larger risk. Compare that to like a 1,500 I don't need to sell for. If I was trying to maximize value from my backers, which again, I'm not trying to do, but if I was trying to do that, I would sell at like 1.55 if I thought I had 1.6, right? Because it's a tiny financial investment for them and I don't need it anyway, right? All right, let's see what all of you are saying about this. You showed my video at the final table of a charity tournament. I think she took 8th place. Yeah, Amy took 8th place in a World Poker Tour charity tournament at Gotham Hall in New York City. Also at the final table was Eric Seidel, David Einhorn, my student. It was funny. My dad sent me a message saying, "Why'd you wear a t-shirt to this high-end charity tournament?" Because, well, I just flew back home from Las Vegas. 5 minutes before the event. We flew in on a private jet with David Einhorn and a few of his people. Then we took a car to the tournament, and we were all drastically underdressed because we just came off of him bubbling $1 million buy-in tournament. So anyway, Amy final tabled that event, and that was a lot of fun. I have a short clip of it on my YouTube, or on my Instagram feed at jcardshark. Let's see. If you're going to chop heads up, what is your advice on how many big blinds your opponent has in order to chop? That's kind of irrelevant. Whenever you're playing heads up, it's whatever percentage of the chips you own is what percentage of the prize pool you own. What do you think of people selling action and only mentioning their cashes and not their profit? Well, unfortunately, it's hard to know what people's profit is. And also, a lot of people don't want to make it clear what their profit is for, not to try to screw investors, but to just try to keep their finances private. I have no problem keeping your finances private. Realize, though, that some investors want to know your finances. They want to know your return on investment. And if you're smart, you just don't back people who don't give you that advice. And that's okay, right? I mean, you're not obligated to give advice, but you're also not obligated to buy someone's action. I think a lot of people have in their minds that if someone presents a deal, they have to take it. I mean, I've been presented, 100 World Series packages this summer, and I bought about four of them. 4 out of 100. And I can tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for good results. I'm looking for a reasonable schedule. I'm looking for people who I know don't go out and degen all night and party all night. And I'm looking for low markups. You give me that, I'll probably buy a piece. But almost no one's doing that, so I don't buy a piece. I'm not offended. I don't even ask their actual profits because I don't think it matters. I can look at their results. Fortunately, me, as a professional poker player, understands how to read results. You can generally look at frequency of play, and you can also look at buy-in size, and you can sort of deduce if they're winning or losing, because I know roughly how much you need to win or lose based on your schedule. And that'll tell you roughly how much they're up. So you don't even have to ask them. You can just use math and figure it out. I think it's actually being a very lazy investor. It's not lazy. It's if you are an investor, there's nothing wrong with saying, what's your ROI, how much have you profited, et cetera, et cetera. If they don't tell you that, and you're still interested, go do the work yourself. It's not hard. You see Brad Owen talking about how he's working with poker coaching. He is. He's going to have a few quizzes going up on poker coaching. I think he already has 2 up on there. And he's sharing poker coaching with his fans. And also he did a giveaway, or is doing a giveaway. It may end today, actually. Is today Wednesday? It ends today, so check out Brad Owen. And he's doing that all for us. You have to ask Sean Deeb if you can sell action first. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Some people get angry for no reason. Sean Deeb's one of these people who gets angry for no reason. A lot of people have a chip on their shoulder for whatever reason. I mean, Sean Deeb's tried to berate me for some stuff. I don't even remember what it was. I thought about making some sort of reply a long time ago. I remember I had it in my draft on my blog. Then I realized, you know what? Anyone who knows this guy knows how he operates, so forget about it. Could you show an opening range from early position and how you would deviate from it? I don't know. Let's see. I have my pre-flop charts, by the way. I don't know exactly the chart or exactly the website, but I know you can get it if you're a poker coaching member. It's very easy. Come on, computer. Please cooperate. All right. Let's go up to early position raise first end charts. What was this question? Do we have an archive of all the little coffee? Yes, at youtube.com/floattheturn. It's there. Opening chart, show how we would deviate based on the players yet to act. Well, here's a little secret. Don't deviate from the under the gun chart. Under the gun chart here is relatively tight. These are the hands you should raise when you're playing 50-ish big blinds deep. And you really shouldn't deviate a whole lot because there's not a whole lot you can do because you're against everyone else at the table. If your opponents are all very loose, very passive, maybe you can play more pairs. Maybe you can play more suited aces. Maybe you can play 8-7 suited. But you really shouldn't be playing too many more offsuit junky hands. Again, if you're watching this on Instagram, sorry. The charts are all on jonathanlittlepoker.com/YouTube is where you can watch this episode. And you can watch it live, just like you're doing here. The real question, though, is from the later positions. Let's say you're in the... If the computer will cooperate. Let's say you're on the button. Now, this is where you should be deviating a lot. If the blinds are really tight and nitty, you want to be raising wider than this, perhaps 100% of hands, right? If your opponents are going to be re-raising you a ton, you should tighten up, maybe down to like 35% of hands. So you really don't need to be adjusting all that much from early position, but you need to be adjusting way more from later position. I mentioned Dale Negreanu is a good buy with no markup. Of course he is. But isn't he going to play high variance? High variance doesn't mean bad. You say low equity. I don't think he's going to play low equity. I think he plays very, very well. Obviously way better than the vast majority of people. And if he's actually worth, let's say, 1.4 across the board, and he gives away like 1 or 2 tournaments out of 50, it's just not a big deal, right? Because it's like a 2% hit to his return on investment across the board. So I think it'd be a fine deal at even money. I'd buy it all day. Regarding financing, remember in Secret Professional Tournament of Poker, you mentioned an opponent who was happy to bust next because of financial situation. Yeah, there's a guy who wanted to pay off his house, and he knew 4th place would pay off his house. So he played really nitty until then. And then, well, then he went nuts. Actually, remember the hand. I think I had ace-10. I raised, no, he raised, I 3-bet, I think he 4-bet all in, and I just snap-called it off. And we won this bracelet. And we won this giant heavy glass globe because of it. Because we heard, by paying attention, that he really wanted 4th. He got 4th, then he piled his money in. And we had that information, and we capitalized on that information. Are those available in PDF format? They are. I think someone find the URL. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/charts or... No, go to pokercoaching.com/charts. See what comes up. But they're available somewhere. I don't know exactly where they are. I need to find that out. Has anyone set up an action market? Yes. That's called Poker Shares. They're under the Tools tab in Poker Coaching. Correct. You enjoy the stream. Good. Thank you, Frankie. We do our best. Do you think the Colossus will be very loose gambling in the early stages? From my experience playing, I guess it was 2 years ago, everybody was really like tight-ish, passive-ish, not out of line. Purple Rain posted a funny-looking link, but there it is. Is this all of them? There they all are. Good. That's the link. Don't know if that'll be clickable for all of you, but there it is. You can go there and get the charts. They're completely free for all of you. Will it be loose and gambly? I didn't see that. I viewed it more as a lot of people were there to play their one World Series tournament for $400 or $500 or whatever it is, and if they lose, it was like the end of their world. I remember a hand, I actually wrote about it on my blog, where I think I had like 5-3 suited or something. I think someone raised, I like defended big blind, and then I check raise flop, they re-raise, and I jam with low flush draw and gut shot, and the opponent folded like top 2 pair or something absurd. And again, that's because I was paying attention and realized this guy really doesn't want to go broke. Could you imagine? You're going to play one World Series event of the year, okay? You go there, you get sat down, on the first hand of the day you get 2 pair on a relatively scary board, and your opponent wants to put all their money in. Are you really calling it off? Is that the story you're going to go and tell your friends, that you went, you bought in, you showed up, you got it all in, and the guy just showed you a set, and you got your money in drawing dead on the first hand of the day? It's like, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to fold. Now, obviously, if you don't care about it, it's very, very different. But I think you're going to find at least, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of the field really cares about it. Some percentage of the field, maybe 10 or 15% is going to be decent. And then maybe the other 30, 40% will be very, very loose. But I don't know. You have to go there and you have to show up. For the Rex, it might be their main event. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like the most important tournament of their lives. You almost finished the World Series prep videos. Great content. Good. If you all have not gotten that yet, go to pokercoaching.com/WSOP bundle. Have raising trends changed since we made some of the videos in there? I mean, not really. One thing that I've been very happy with is how well my content from a few years ago has held up. And that's because we've been teaching you fundamentally sound strategies before I even knew what fundamentally sound strategies were. I went back and I'm rereading my very first tournament book from 9 years ago. And I didn't necessarily know I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. But it turns out almost everything was very close to what I do today. There were a few spots. Like, I think I folded big blind a little bit too much. I definitely didn't fight hard enough from the big blind. I continuation bet too much, but that was on purpose. I knew I was continuation betting too much. But anyway, the strategies are still very, very applicable. Let's see. The situation where you know they're never calling is something Alex Fitzgerald talks about. He likes to abuse those guys. Yeah, if you know they're just going to make big folds, then push them around. Obviously, see, the thing is, like, that guy, I think he had ace-jack on, like, ace-jack-4 or something like that, and I had 5-3 of spades with flush draw and gut shot. I think I checked, he bet, I check-raised, he re-raised to, like, a third or a half of the stack, and then I jammed. And I thought he had, like, ace-king. I was pretty sure he had ace-king or ace-queen. Turns out I had ace-jack. I was shocked. But I just thought he had ace-king, was trying to find out where he stands. It's a classic thing. Because, like, right there, what should you really be re-raising with when I check-raise flop? My check-raise flop range should be nut hands and draws. And good draws, right? So for him to re-raise, he just has to have super nuts. And obviously you don't fold super nuts, right? So he should be doing a lot of calling there, I think. Anyway, what I think doesn't matter, because it's not how the guy plays. He wanted to put in a third of a stack or half a stack and then fold. Is poker going to keep evolving? Yes, poker is definitely going to keep evolving. Even though it's practically solved, it is not quite solved yet. And the solvers that we have, well, little things become very relevant. Like the bunching effect, for example, where if you're playing shorthanded, you should be a little bit tighter when they fold to you than if you're playing nine-handed and they fold to you on the button. Because there's more likely to be high cards yet to act. Did I say that backwards? It's more likely for high cards to be yet to act if the first people fold, which means you need to be tighter. Don't know why my brain's not working right now. You need to be tighter full ring, right? If they fold you on the button, you need to be a little bit looser shorthanded. Assuming ante's all the same. And stuff like that becomes relatively important when you're talking very, very specifically, right? Because like your button shoving range could be 2 or 3% more hands if you're playing short stacked, and 2 or 3% may not sound like a lot, but it's actually a 10% increase to your range or something like that, and that's very important. Let's see. If you're saying get a better microphone, I have a very good microphone. I'll tell you the problem. We're in a small room. If anyone knows, here's something I need from you. If you know how to actually get rid of the echo in the room. I've been in a sound studio. I know I can get those black tile panels, whatever they are, the little pointy foam ones or whatever, on the wall. And I'm very highly thinking about doing that because I realize there is echo in here. Because the wall is like literally right here. We're in a small office. We have to make use of what we do. Send me an email, support@pokercoaching.com, if you know how to soundproof a room in a way that doesn't make it look atrociously bad, because then my wife will kill me. Anyway, solvers get more and more advanced, but also it's important to realize that even once you know how to use the solver, even once you know how to actually make the solver work, a lot of people don't use the solver appropriately. They will just do dumb stuff with it. They won't adjust their opponent's range, for example. They always assume their opponents play perfectly, which is ridiculous. So anyway, need to make sure that you are using the solver appropriately, and most people don't. I always hear and see big blind strategy. We personally find small blind to be the most confusing. Just do a lot of 3-betting or folding. Also, we have charts on that chart link. Go check it out. You'll see roughly the optimal strategy, at least in my mind. Will the webinar tonight with Alex Fitzgerald be available? Probably. Almost all of our webinars are available. We will start not making them all available to everyone in the near future. We have big changes coming up. If you're a member of my inner circle, by the way, in the next webinar, I'm going to be showing you lots and lots of new stuff we're working on. So that'll be fun. Is poker solved? Again, what does solved mean? You need curtains. We're definitely not putting curtains in a room with no windows. Mark asked a question. In live poker, wait, is live poker in the USA soft because the USA got kicked out of online poker? This might have caused the evolution of the strategy to be slowed down. No, live poker is soft everywhere. Just because people don't play very many hands, especially in the small and medium stakes. But poker in general has slowed, the progression of poker within America in general has slowed down because of the lack of online poker. Definitely true. Is Hero more likely to flop a set if there's a raise and a bunch of callers when he has pocket twos? In theory, yeah, because you'd have to think the callers have more high cards. It's not that big of a deal. Again, it's a very, very minimal thing. Soundproof curtains. All right, I'll check it out. Rugs on the floor. Pictures on the wall help. Oh, goodness. Yeah, soundproofing is plus EV, but keeping the wife happy is GTO. I completely agree. I know you hear me fine, but there's a little bit of echo. D says, you all sound absurd. People always make mistakes. It's true. That's the neat thing about poker is that even if you... nobody plays well. Nobody plays perfectly. It's a scenario where, yes, you can have a robot perfectly learn how to play poker. But at the same time, we're not robots, and live poker will always be soft and beatable because we are not robots, right? Humans are not going to be able to implement perfectly robotic strategies. So, we're about out of time for today. I wanted to reiterate again, for all of you just joining in, the number one most powerful strategy for short stack play, jam very wide over raises, because people drastically under-defend. Very often, if your opponent's open too wide and fold to shoves too often, say they're opening half of the hands and only calling with 12% of hands, we already showed the math here earlier. You're making 1.4 big blinds profit by shoving. That is huge. Way better than just defending the big blind, let's say. And doing that will give you a better chance to win. We also showed that, when you do make that shove, you're broke 16% of the time, but 84% of the time you either win a little bit or double up, and that is how you win tournaments. Sitting around, blinding out, hoping to get lucky is not how you're going to win one of these big World Series events. You're going to do that by getting in there, battling, and when you get down to 15 or 20 big blinds, getting off of that shallow stack, either by stealing a few pots or by winning it all in, right? And sometimes you lose, and that's A-okay. KCap says, if I play with my equalizer, I could balance out the sound. KCap, send me an email and let me know how to balance out my equalizer. I'm okay at balancing poker hands, but not audio equalizers. All right, so that's going to be it. Hope you all have a great day. We'll be back again on Friday. We're here for a little coffee every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I know it's bright and early. If you miss it, it's available on YouTube at jonathanlittlepoker.com/YouTube. You can go back and watch all of them. You can also listen to this. No, it's not quite the same because we use images sometimes. But you can also listen to this on the podcast applications. Just search Little Coffee. It'll come right up. The World Series is here. So make sure you check out the bundle at pokercoaching.com/WSOP bundle. And that's it. Hope you have a great day. Good luck in your games. Enjoy yourselves. Have fun. Be nice to someone. And work hard to better our poker community, because if you tear it up, well, it'll be crap. And we don't want it to be crap. We want to survive, and we want to thrive. Have fun. I love you all. I will see you again on Friday.